what I spent my money on last month as a big law attorney and business owner. So the income or the money in this video does come from multiple different sources. I'll kind of give you what that overview is at the end of this video, but we're gonna start off by jumping into how I spent it, where it went, and especially how I divide things up. So to start, I do divide things into 3 different categories. So the very first category is my savings category, and this is essentially where I'm paying myself first, right? I'm making sure that I am putting money into me, myself, and my future before going into expenses or anything along those lines. So the very first thing I did was $2,088 into crypto investments. So I kind of just got into crypto. I did split that between Bitcoin and a Dogecoin. My second is $4,588 into the S&P 500, $9,353 into a down payment for an investment property. So just to give you a little bit of context here, this will be my first home, and I am using my first home as an investment property because I'm going to be doing something called house hacking. And house hacking essentially is where you buy an investment property. And so for me, it's going to be a multi-unit. So like a 2-door, a 3-door, or a 4-door. You live in one of the units and then you rent out the rest of the units. And so ideally, or hopefully, the other units that you are renting out are either enough to cover your mortgage or pay a substantial amount of your mortgage so you aren't paying that much. And then after you've moved out, so after you've lived there for a year, then someone else lives in the unit you were living in, and now your entire mortgage is being covered, and ideally you're pocketing more of that money, right? So over time, you have multiple real estate investment properties that's giving you passive income through house hacking, essentially. And another benefit of house hacking, especially if it's your first property, you can qualify for some first-time home buyer payment programs, loan programs, grant programs, et cetera, et cetera. You can also qualify for the FHA 3 or 3.5% down, the Fannie Mae 5% down. So just tons of benefits, because typically if you're buying an investment property, you do have to put, upwards of 20% down if you're not going to live in that unit. And so that's why I put $9,353 into a high yield savings account, because I'm saving up for that down payment on that multi-unit property. Also, for my down payment and this next one, which is my emergency fund, I do keep both of those in a high yield savings account so that it's gaining interest every single month. So I should have checked, but I am gaining over like hundreds of dollars in interest every single month on the money in my high yield savings account. You don't want to keep these things in a regular savings account. Okay, so next we have my emergency fund, which I put $0 into, and that's because my emergency fund is fully funded with 6 months worth of expenses. So I don't need to continue to add to that. And again, that's also kept in my high yield savings account. I put aside also in my high yield savings account, like just vacation money. So I like to take like a long, like a week and a half vacation every 2 or 3 months. And so I just put aside for those vacations because I like very nice vacations, like 5-star resorts, all inclusives, things like that. So I put aside $1,000 for that. And then I also put $1,450 for tithing. I don't currently have a home church, but I'm still just putting aside for tithing for when I do find one. I know I don't have to, I just want to. So my next category is my expenses. So like I said, I do my savings first and then I go to my expenses. My expenses category, I pay $4,000 in rent. And for me, and actually just in general, I live in a high-rise luxury apartment building in Washington, D.C. And I think that's a phenomenal price for where I am living, especially in my building, which I literally have everything like within reach of my hand. So that's $4,000 on rent. I sent $1,250 to members of my family who needed it, $2,700 on my credit card. And so I got a lot of questions when I posted this video on TikTok about gas and meals and kind of like those like everyday expenses. I charge those to my credit card. And just generally speaking, any chance I get, I'm charging something to my credit card because I want those points. But I do pay off my credit card in full every single month. So the only times I'm not using my credit card for the most part is if I'm going to be charged a penalty to use my credit card, or interest, or pay extra to use my credit card. So for example, if you pay your rent with your credit card, sometimes they'll charge you more. So that I won't do, but everything else I pretty much do. I spent $400 on a flight to go see my boyfriend. I spent $250 on clip-ins, and actually all of those I did charge to my credit card. I just pulled them out here for some reason. $255 for cleaners. My cleaners come bi-weekly, although I'm considering switching them to coming weekly because I really could use it. Spent $1,000 on lasers. So I did buy a 10-session laser package, and it was a total of $3,000, and she just splits it up into 3 payments. So that was my final laser payment. Another question I got was about like healthcare, health insurance, dental, all that kinds of stuff. And my job, my firm, covers all of that. So I don't pay out of pocket for like healthcare or anything along those lines. So that's why you're not seeing that in here. And also, just generally speaking, my firm income, like when I receive it, it's like tax is already taken out of it, which leads me right into my third category, which is tax. So for my firm income, tax is taken out before I see that money, right? Before that, the money that hits my account, my net income is post-tax, right? So I don't have to withhold further tax from that. But for my business, obviously, I do have to withhold tax because nobody's doing that. And if you own your own business or you're self-employed or you're a content creator, you do have to be mindful that you still have to pay taxes. So you need to withhold some of that income for taxes. I know exactly how much I will owe in taxes because I know, for example, what my income is, what my profit is, but also what my expenses are and what write-offs I can use, and then my tax bracket. And using that, I can calculate how much tax I will owe. And so I know how much to put aside every single month. And if you're like struggling with that or you need help with that, I recommend hiring a CFO or like a tax person, accountant, whatever, to help you figure out that number. So for taxes, I put aside $6,000 in November 2024. Then I also put aside $4,000 just for just operating, right? Because it's kind of like an emergency fund, but for your business or your content creation or whatever it may be, because you don't want to run out of money if you have a slow month, right? Because months go up and down, especially if you work for yourself, you own a business. Not every single month is going to bring in the same amount of money. And so just putting aside when you do have really good months for those months that may be a little bit lower. So that was the $4,000 for that. And then I did have $1,588 just left over. And that's just what I call fun money. That's really just like, okay, well, it's just gonna sit there, right? I usually just leave it in my checking account. I don't like transfer it anywhere. I just usually just leave it there. And so over time, my checking account does end up also, building up a little bit of a safety net that I will either then transfer to my high yield savings or like invest it or do whatever. So that brings my total up to $39,922 for November 2024. So kind of to break things down for you guys, because I got a lot of questions about this. So first and foremost, I have videos on my channel already about Big Law, which is what I do. It's where I work. What I do is litigation. The kind of firm I work at is a big law firm. Okay. I have videos on my channel already about that. Big law is not something that's easy to get. It's not something that majority of attorneys are doing. And if you want to land a big law job, you do have to be very intentional at the law school application stage about doing what you need to do to, one, get into a school that makes it realistic for you to get into big law. Because again, there's like 15 law schools that put over 50% of students into big law. And even then, it's still pretty difficult. Not going to get into too much detail here, like I said, because I have tons of videos on it already. But I just did want to state that disclaimer. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to go out and do this. I'm just going to go to any law school and do this. And also, so my big law firm, like I said, this is multiple streams of income. I don't have the exact breakdown for you, but I can tell you my big law firm, that money is over $12,000 per month. And then my business and other streams pretty much makes up the rest. So it's over $12,000 per month from my big law firm, which is a substantial amount of money. So a lot of people think that you have to go into entrepreneurship to build wealth, but it's not. You could very well build wealth from a 9-to-5 job. You can very well build wealth from high-paying careers if you do the intention, you do the work, and make sure that you are doing what's necessary to succeed and thrive in those jobs. Like even if I didn't have a business, I would be very well off with my over $12,000 paycheck from my big law firm and just building my wealth and still following this same process of investing and doing what I need to do, right? Because the high yield savings accounts, building up your savings, the investment properties. Over time, that's giving me passive income, right? The business or the side hustle or whatever it is on the side just allows you to do it faster. That's really, at least how I perceive it, right? And so don't think you have to go into entrepreneurship to make this, to build wealth, or to even like live a successful or happy life. You don't. If you want to, great, follow that route, but you don't have to. I've always wanted to go to law school. And once I got to law school, I knew I wanted to do federal clerkships. I knew I wanted to do big law. And so that was always something I was aiming for, and it's something I'm doing now. And I also enjoy running my business. I also enjoy law school coaching. So I do them both. But that is what brings me to where I am today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys on my next one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow me on all my social media at Sephora Gray Esquire. That's ESQ for short. And I will see you guys on my next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.